Welcome to Empire Building. I'm Wendy Papazan, and together with my 4 co-hosts, we bring you weekly unfiltered conversations about leadership, growing a big empire, and living on your own terms.
I'm Kimber Lovett-Mankeety. We are investors and wealth builders with over $75 million in combined net worth.
I'm Sarah Reynolds. We are visionaries who built more than 50 businesses with over $122 million in annual revenue.
I'm Tiffany Fikes. We've led thousands of people and do it all while being pretty good moms.
And I'm Seychelle Van Poole. We are your podcast to learn how to build big businesses and even bigger lives.
Welcome to another great episode of Empire Building. You have Sarah and Tiffany in the studio today, which is always a good week, a good Monday, a good whenever you listen to your podcasts. So, Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to record with you today. As always, it's always get so inspired and learn a lot. And today is going to be a topic that you don't hear talked about a lot, which we like to broach those topics here at Empire Building.
That's right. Bring us to any uncomfortable conversation. We may even start it.
Exactly. So today we are going to talk about, as a female empire builder, how do you lead, train, coach the men in your world, in your empire? So we are overachieving women, I would like to say, and you might feel at times you are too strong or maybe too aggressive, or as some people say, maybe a B word. I don't say that word, but we get called that sometimes as female leaders, female empire builders, right? And maybe you don't really understand men in terms of how to lead them, how to guide them. And so today we're going to dive in and give some techniques for managing your people, not just the male ones, by the way. So let's say you lead all females, like I did for many years, led females, and then hired my first male agent and have now grown to learn how to lead both males and females. And all of what we're going to teach today and talk about today can be applied to both, because all of our techniques, I would say, females also care about in terms of their leader. So
I love it. Yeah. It's funny. I always was friends with guys in high school, in college. So when I started my business, to me, that's who I hired first. Actually, my first buyer's agent was a female. And then my next 2 were guys. And then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot how much I love being in a room with men. Let's go.
Yes.
So I'm excited about this topic too, because some of us just operate differently. And it really is just about how to lead somebody different than you. And at the core, that's what it is. And valuing yourself and the other person for who they are and how they need to be led. And it just so happens that today we're going to talk about females leading males, because there's some differences there to discuss.
a lot of it's like generalities, right? But nothing is like all the same, right? Not every male is the same. Not every female is the same. And we're going to talk about some generalities that we have found, or commonalities that we have found amongst it. I want to share a little bit of a funny story. So I'll never forget, I was sitting down in a one-on-one with Mark, who has been with me almost a decade. And right now he leads our growth department, but for many years, he led our inside sales department. And he's one of my most proud, I would say, team members, or someone that has allowed for me to impact his life in a pretty big way in terms of developing him, because he is a rock star leader and just amazing team member. And he started as our runner. And so,
wow.
Yeah, part-time.
Wow.
As our runner, and now has led and leads our two most important departments. And so I'll never forget. So we were sitting in a one-on-one, and I said to him, we need to look to hire 2 more ISAs based on what I'm seeing the numbers show. We had an influx of leads and we need to get more people on the phone. So let's go ahead and hire 2 new ISAs. So he said, okay, got it. A week goes by and he comes into my office and says, okay, the 2 new ISAs are starting on Monday. And I said, what do you mean 2 new ISAs? And I looked upset. Like, what do you mean 2? Like, he just comes in, like, done. 2 ISAs hired. They're starting on Monday. And I said, you hired 2 new ISAs? And he looked really confused and said, well, yeah, that's what you told me to do. I said, well, what I actually meant was, and then Lydia, my executive assistant at the time, she peeks in and he says, Sarah meant go ahead and get a few ISA candidates and then come to her about it before actually hiring them. And he looked at me and goes, but that's not what you said. I said, yes, but next time do that. He said, but that's not what you told me to do. And just was so confused. And that's such a real example of how I learned very quickly that men take everything I say very literal. Like if I say, go hire 2 new ISAs, they're going to go hire 2 new ISAs. If I want to mean something different, I need to speak something different. Because I definitely told him to do it.
You said we need ISAs.
Yeah.
And he said, got it.
Yes.
I know how to solve this. We need ISAs. I know how to solve it.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Yep. And so they definitely take it very literal. Black and white typically is what I found. If you say something, they will go execute on it. And so you want to be very clear. So that's my first little lesson on how to lead men is they're literal. And so
Be clear.
Be very clear. And they want clarity. And when you give them clarity, they will get it done. That's the thing.
Well, and that's the other thing that you hear in this story is like, he got it done.
He got it
way
done.
to go, Mark. No wonder
Yeah.
he's risen so far in your organization. He's awesome.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so let's first talk about maybe you're like me where you have led females and you would like to have some diversity on your team. We talk a lot about there being a glass ceiling in terms of females. You don't want your team to be all one sex. You don't want your team to be all one race. You don't want your team, you want diversity, ages, stages of life. As much diversity as you can have on your team, the better. And as a leader, as an empire builder, you have to always be attracting different types of people if you want diversity. And diversity brings strength to any organization, right? So let's talk first about how do you recruit and attract men? So what are some tips on that?
I mean, I think the first thing really comes down to just being open to hiring men, not being discrediting a candidate for any reason, and just being curious about who they are. Because I know, I've seen it both ways where there's a team who all they hire is men. And when they told the team leader, only send me candidates that are men, they were like, that's illegal. I can't do that. So let's not do that. But it really just comes to the value of the diversity. I think what you said is important. Understand that there's value to different kinds of voices. And so what do we need to be open to in these candidates? And I think the hiring process we talk about on other episodes, men love it. Men love it just as much as women do. And so just follow your process and be open to whatever the candidates are that come to you is number one.
That's right. I found that just like females, men also love opportunity. So making sure that you are clear on what opportunity your organization has, talk about it openly to as many people as possible, making sure that they know your vision, they know your mission, they know your values, and they know what opportunity comes from partnering with you in your business is critical. And so men are looking for opportunity just like females are. And so you want to be talking about those opportunities as much as possible.
Well, and your story is a perfect example of that, about that. Being clear on where you're going, because men want to get there.
Yes.
They just want to get into action. And so that's super exciting for them. Obviously some men care about the personality fit and things like that, but historically they want to know where they're going and they want to get into action on it. And so I love that's what you're talking about. Bring out, what is that visual map? That's another great thing. Often men are more visual. So make sure you're communicating the opportunity, not just in words, but also visually for them, which I love it.
Yeah. They want to contribute, right? So God made men as hunters, right? They were out there hunting for their families, the food. And it's the same thing even today in terms of they want to contribute, they want to add, they want to provide more to your organization, to your mission. They have to know about it, right? But when they know about it, they want to contribute. So showing them through visuals, showing them through different ways how they can contribute goes a really long way to attracting them into your world and them wanting to be part of your world.
All right. So we have done it. We've hired amazing men. Now, what are we going to do with them? How do we lead them? And we've come up with kind of 4 tips on like things that have worked for us. And so that's what we're going to run through. Number 1, don't feel like you have to lead like a man to lead a man.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about, feminine leadership and masculine leadership energy. Both sexes can use both techniques. So, for a long time in leadership, it was lead like a man with the male leadership style. And studies have shown that the feminine leadership style is actually just as valuable, just as effective. And so don't feel like just immediately, oh, I've got to be tough and, hard charging and whatever that thing is that you think you need to be to have masculine leadership. That is not what we're saying here. You do not have to lead like a man to lead men.
Yeah, I think the 3 things I think are powerful here in terms of feminine leadership qualities, right? Collaboration, using our intuition, using empathy. Those are things that you want to be proud of. They're not things that you want to diminish, right? You want to lead the way that your innate nature that God gave you to lead. That's how you want to lead. Whether you're leading females or men, that's how you want to lead. So be proud of it. Don't feel like you have to match them and be exactly who they are. You want to be who you are. And there's a reason that they are working alongside you. There's a reason they're with you. So be proud of it. Do not diminish who you are. And they came to partner with you for a reason. They see an opportunity with you. They see an area that they can provide value. So own it. Own who you are and don't back down. I love that.
One thing that I have discovered in hiring men is make sure that they have experienced a strong woman at some point in their life. That's part of my vetting process because of this thing right here. Have they experienced a feminine leader before? Or is this going to be the first time that they experience this and learn how to interact with it? Because it is a little different for some people. And so use this idea of feminine leadership also in the hiring of men. Like, have they had a strong woman? Because I will say the best men in our organization have strong women in their lives. Either their mother was somebody that was really strong or their wife is somebody who is really strong, and they experience feminine leadership in their life outside of just me as the leader, because it's not the first time they're experiencing it.
Yeah, I remember one of my first interviews it was an agent that was coming on board, and we had gotten down to the final stage of the process of hiring him. And I had pretty extreme imposter syndrome. He had pastored one of the largest churches here locally. He was 25 years older than me, a lot of experience with leadership, a lot of experience in life. And he was really wanting to tackle joining our team and being a top agent here locally. And the whole time I was like, what do I do? Because I'm younger, I'm a female, he hasn't brought it up. He hasn't, what do I do? So finally at the last conversation, I just said, I just was transparent and vulnerable with him, which is another feminine leadership quality that we want you to lean into both while leading them and also while hiring them. I just said to him, do you see any problem? I'm significantly younger than you. I'm a female. I'm a strong, very aggressive female leader. And are you going to have any problem with that type of style, and or do you foresee any problem? And he just said, I love it, and shared with me his background. And he's like, I see no problem at all. He's been now one of my top agents with me 9 years, and we've served hundreds and hundreds of families together now over the last 9 years. And it was important for me to ask him that question for myself, for me to have the confidence to be Sarah, right? And I think that's a huge gold nugget from Tiffany to ask during the interview process about their background with female leadership. I love that.
Well, it also is modeling for them or showing them how you lead. You're still the one making the decision about whether you hire him. You have the authority, but you also are showing the vulnerability of here's the reality of the situation. And I recognize that, which keeps you from coming off arrogant to them.
So true.
So, like you do that in the hiring process, you also do that in the leadership because you're the leader. And so you have to be authoritative enough to lead, but you can show vulnerability and you don't have to be always right to be a strong authoritative leader that holds them accountable to whatever those things are that they said. But that balance of vulnerability and authoritative is a really good balance and very important, I think, in this topic.
So true. So be proud. So first tip is be proud of your female leadership strengths. Lean on them. Do your best to any imposter syndrome things that you might have, like I struggled with before. What I found is that it was all in my head. That was not how they saw it differently. They wanted me to be me. And they were attracted to our organization for what they knew that they could accomplish their goals, no matter if I was a female or not, right? So like, be proud of who you are. Lean on those feminine traits. The second thing is you want to show respect. And, this is something that I think, this episode can also help even in our marriages in terms of men in general want respect more than anything else. They value respect more than love. They value respect more than anything else, right? So what I've learned to do is to praise in public and coach in private. And really, this is across the board. Females also want to be praised in public and be coached in private. I'll never forget, when we were starting to build the team and we had started with, there were 6 of us and then we went to 8 and then we went to 12. Like that was a big number going from 6 to 12, doubling in size in a year. And I had hired my first male agent and we were very used to small group meetings and small group talking about things. And we were very open about everything. Everything was talked about together as a team. And we had our first team meeting and we showed all of the numbers and I started coaching him in front of everyone on things that I noticed that he needed to work on. And 30 minutes after the meeting was over, I got a text message from him saying, "Hey, I would like to talk with you. You hurt my feelings." And I had never had a team member tell me that I hurt their feelings. And I was like,
because this isn't new behavior. You'd been doing this before.
Oh yeah. This wasn't new. Yeah, I was just me and I learned through talking with him. I set up a time to talk with him because I, of course, never want a team member for me to hurt their feelings. And what I realized was I didn't hurt his feelings. I didn't show respect to him publicly. And that really bothered him. And I learned that men in general, want respect publicly. And they have no problem in a one-on-one setting, you being very fiercely and lovingly direct about what they need to work on. It's just that they want that one-on-one and they will go out and they will make changes and they will take your coaching, but they want that one-on-one more than they do in a group setting. And so I learned to show respect. And this goes back to something my mom taught me with, like she always said, I always praise your dad publicly and we talk about things privately and that will help your marriage. When I was getting married, that was her advice for me and George. I do my best.
I fail at that all the time,
I know.
But I understand it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yes, it is. So show respect.
Okay, number 3, be transparent and direct, especially in your communication with them. And again, to Sarah's point, so when you are having the one-on-one conversation with them, be transparent and be direct. It's a scientific fact that men process info and details differently than women. And so you understanding if that's not how you communicate, if you don't communicate in short, curt answers without providing maybe a ton of detail, understanding that's not them not engaging. It's not them shutting down. It's not laziness. It's not any of that. It's just kind of like the example. I mean, I love the example you gave of Mark. I feel like we can pull it back every time. He was done with the conversation and he went and just hired them.
Yep.
So he didn't need to talk about it or our feelings about hiring somebody. He just wanted to know the information and then he wanted to go execute on it.
Yep.
So understanding that. I mean, just like with anybody, honesty is important. with them, and you need to give them permission to be honest with you too. Because I think it goes both ways, where they're sitting there going, I need to say something, but how is she going to take it? Because my wife would not take this very well. Like, be honest and invite honesty and vulnerability from both sides. Be literal, be clear, be direct. And most of the time, there's plenty of men who want to talk for a long time, but straight and direct is probably going to be your best path with men.
Yeah. One of the things that I learned with this is, brevity has never been my strength. I can say something that could be said in 3 words, in 30 words. And it just is something I struggle with. So I'm an out loud processor many times. I will think out loud as we're talking about something, as we're brainstorming. So what I learned is at the end of that session is to then basically bullet point it. Okay, what we talked about was this, and this is what we're going to take action on, to make sure that everyone's clear. And again, this is good advice across the board, right? To make sure everyone's clear, like, okay, we hopped around. We talked about 5 different topics, and you shared your feelings about 3 of the options. And I think you're leaning towards option 1, but you haven't said that directly. So making sure that you're being direct at the very end, especially, and them understanding that's how you think. And so being open, I love that Tiffany was saying, being open with them. I always tell my team, like, I'm an out loud processor. I will talk about my feelings about things, and I could confuse you. At the end, I commit to you that I will make sure that we are all in agreement our way forward after we're done talking it through. And so just having that conversation is huge.
I mean, I'm like listening to this going like, yeah, I totally have done that. Those of us who are verbal processors are confusing our people. I can guarantee it, whether they're male or female.
Yes.
And so I love that nugget right there, is like, at the end of your verbal processing or your collaboration, whatever you call it around the table, as the leader, sum it up, bullet point it. I love that.
Just yesterday, I was talking with my chief growth officer, Matt. We had an offsite with my main people last week about setting us up for a strategy session about our future. I thought I was very clear that we had made a decision. So I asked him, I know that you had a one-on-one today with this person, and how did that go? Like, are we taking action? And he said, well, I was not clear that's what the decision was. And I always know that when that is said, a lot of people would say, like, shame on my person. They should have known. No. Shame on me as the leader. I should have been making sure at the end that everyone was clear. Okay, we just made a decision that we're going to execute on. And so at the end, you always want to recap the collaboration, recap the meeting, and make sure that everyone's on the same page of what decisions were made. So, okay, number 4 is you want to utilize competition. So I love sports as a female. Sports in general are like started as a masculine thing. Now I'm loving, we have so many female sports. Volleyball is becoming such a big one, which our family is loving. Okay. But men in general grow up in team environments, in competitions. Like, they grow up with that thought. And so you want to utilize competition. Many times the men at Empower Home are the ones that really like spur it on. Like, I start the competition, but they help me spur it on because they talk smack to one another.
Yes.
They make it fun. They're very in each other's face about it. And so you want to utilize competition. They will actually help you grow your business when you utilize competition. So our 4th tip for leading and managing men is to utilize competition, because they love that. Drive them with competition and to win.
And that can be just as simple as a scoreboard. Like, they understand scoreboards, like lining people up on their abilities or their outcomes. Like, all these things are normal sports things. And so utilize that. It doesn't have to be, we're always running a competition because we have men, and so we're always got a prize and always. Just have a scoreboard. Just have a leaderboard.
Yep.
And like, that alone can spur them on. And the smack talk is the most fun. I actually have missed that. I don't have any male agents right now. And the women just will not smack talk each other appropriately. And so,
no, there's too many high fives and great job. And
yeah.
I'm like, no, we need the one to like channel.
Give me the take that.
Exactly.
Watch me crush you. I need more of that in my life.
Exactly. Well, this was a fun episode, and all of these things can be used, whether you're leading men or females, whoever you're leading, all of these tips can be applied. And so lean into your greatness and how you were created. Don't back down. If you're an aggressive female like me and Tiffany, be that aggressive female. Be who you are. Show your vision. Show the opportunity. You will attract some powerhouse men. You will attract some powerhouse females. Be clear and direct in your communication. Build that competitive environment and watch the diversity of your organization help you build that big empire and at the same time, an even bigger life. Thanks for joining us and have an awesome week.
Bye, guys.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not Keller Williams Realty LLC and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.